including you, Jay-Z.
Yes. Yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men.
Y'all don't understand what the is going on? Y'all don't understand I just cracked the industry? Y'all don't understand I just cracked it? I just cracked this whole crack. It's over. I cracked the whole. It's over.
The diva Rihanna. She's from Barbados?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, she's Bayesian. How did you come in contact with her? I mean, did you fly over there?
No, Jay Brown had actually bought me a song. She has a song right now that's I want to say massive because of her rules when I first heard the song. And then, you know, he kept going, Jay Brown, he kept being persistent. I was like, you know what, bring her by. And when she walks,
really,
the 3 a.m. was when that contract got signed.
A lot of people on your place that there are 2 ways to leave here, either through the door with the deal sign or through this window, and we're on the 29th floor.
A random woman rides by Rihanna's house and up the place. Stop it, stay woke. It's giving another.
Also, Jay-Z burned Riri. Then Riri gave that to Chris Brown, which led to that argument. And that explains why Beyonce won't ever leave Jay-Z. She got that too.
What if everything you thought was just celebrity drama is actually something darker, something calculated, something that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time? Because the moment Tory Lanez's father stepped forward, he didn't just defend his son, he cracked open a narrative that people have been too scared to say out loud. Suddenly, whispers about Roc Nation silencing people didn't sound so crazy anymore. Suddenly, Rihanna's house being fired at 10 times didn't feel like a random act. Suddenly, patterns started forming. And when patterns form in Hollywood, you don't ignore them, you follow them. Tory's father didn't hesitate. He pointed fingers straight at Roc Nation, claiming they've been operating in the shadows, controlling outcomes, pulling strings, deciding who rises and who falls. And if anyone has seen that darkness up close, it would be him. Because his son, once a rising star, is now sitting in a cell with a 10-year sentence hanging over his life like a shadow that refuses to move. But let's rewind, because this didn't start here. It started with that night, the night that changed everything. Meghan, Tory, Kelsey, a car ride that turned into chaos, a secret affair exposed, betrayal, arguments boiling over, and then shots fired. Meghan hit in the foot. The story that followed? Messy, loud, everywhere. But even then, there were questions. Why did things escalate so quickly? Why did the narrative feel controlled? And just like that, the public had its villain. Tory Lanez. Case closed, right? Or was it just the beginning of something much bigger? Because when the courtroom doors closed and the verdict dropped, Tory's father didn't stay silent. No, he exploded. Right there, outside the courthouse, calling out Jay-Z and Roc Nation like a man who had nothing left to lose. He wasn't just angry, he was accusing them of orchestrating the entire downfall, of using their power to make sure Tory never stood a chance. And people laughed at first until they didn't, because the more you look at it, the more uncomfortable it gets. Why would a music empire care so much about one artist? Why would they allegedly go this far?
Get out of the car, right?
At that point, the argument wasn't even with me. Like, the argument was with the 2 people in the backseat. So I asked the driver to pull the car over, like, I'm done with this. And I should have stayed out of the car. Like, I should have not got back in the car. And they was like, Megan, just get back in the car. We almost there. Like, just get back in. So I get back in the car. It's like it's getting worse.
The
like,
arguing in the car.
The arguing in the car is getting worse, and I don't want to be in this car no more, like, because I see it's getting crazy. So I get out the car, and it's like everything happens so fast. And all I hear is this man screaming, he said, dance, and he started shooting, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like, he shot a couple of times.
Unless there was history. Allegedly, Tory had been approached to sign with Roc Nation. Things went left, badly left. And from that moment on, according to the streets, he became a target. Not immediately, not obviously, but quietly, strategically. And when the Meghan situation happened, that might have been the perfect opportunity. Because not long after, Meghan signs with Roc Nation. Coincidence? Or timing that's just a little too perfect? From there, the narrative tightened around Tory like a noose. Media campaigns, public perception shifting, stories spreading, and suddenly, the industry seemed united against him. Almost like
System of Roc Nation, including you, Jay-Z.
Yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men.
Like it had been coordinated. Then things got even messier. Legal battles, accusations of bloggers being paid to spread narratives, money trails, Zelle transactions. And Tory's father, he doesn't deny everything. Instead, he does something unexpected. He forgives Megan, publicly, calmly, almost strategically, saying she doesn't even realize she's being used as bait, used as a piece in a much bigger game. And that's where the story starts to twist in a way that's hard to ignore. Because days after that message of forgiveness, something violent happens again. Tory gets stabbed 14 times. Not once, not twice, 14 inside prison. And people start asking questions that no one wants to answer. How does something like that happen? Who benefits? And why does it feel like every time someone speaks up, something happens to them? Now here's where it gets even more chilling. Rihanna, global icon, untouchable, right? Except suddenly, her house is shot at 10 times, and people start connecting dots they weren't supposed to connect. Both Tory and Rihanna linked to Roc Nation, both allegedly at odds with the same powerful circle, both experiencing extreme, violent incidents. Different situations, same energy, same pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because this isn't just about one case anymore. It's about a system, a pattern of control, influence, and consequences that seem to follow anyone who steps out of line. And then you go back to 2016, Rihanna versus Bianca. Tension, competition. But was it really just competition? Or was it something deeper? Because right before Rihanna's album release, it leaks. On Tidal, a platform owned by Jay-Z, forcing her to drop early, killing her momentum. Meanwhile, Bianca's numbers soar. And suddenly, Rihanna isn't just another artist, she's someone who might have seen too much, experienced too much, and quietly stepped away from music altogether. Why? That's the question no one answers directly. But the rumors, they never stopped. And now, years later, shots fired at her home, Tory in prison, attacked, his father speaking out louder than ever, and the same name keeps echoing through every conversation. Roc Nation, Jay-Z power, influence, control. Is it all just coincidence? Or is it something people are too afraid to fully expose? Because the scariest part isn't what's being said, it's what isn't. And just when you think the story has reached its peak, it takes a turn that feels almost too calculated to ignore. Like every piece has been quietly moving into place for years, and we're only now being allowed to see the outline. Because once Rihanna's name got pulled into the same conversation as Tory Lanez, everything shifted from isolated drama into something that felt interconnected, something layered, something that refuses to sit comfortably as coincidence. People started digging. Old clips resurfaced. Old interviews suddenly sounded different. And what once felt like harmless industry stories started carrying a weight that made them hard to ignore. Take that moment Rihanna first met Jay-Z. It's always been framed as a fairy tale industry story, right? A nervous young artist, a powerful executive, a life-changing opportunity. But listen closely, really closely, because sometimes the details people laugh off are the ones that matter the most. She walks into that office, shaking, uncertain, stepping into a world she doesn't yet understand. She sings, she impresses, and then comes that line. That line people have joked about for years but suddenly doesn't feel so funny anymore. 2 ways to leave the building. Through the door with a deal or through the window. And they're on the 29th floor. Everyone laughs. She laughs. The interviewer laughs. But ask yourself this, why would that even be said? Why does that sound less like humor and more like pressure wrapped in a smile? And that's the thing about power. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it is a joke. Sometimes it disguises itself as opportunity while quietly closing every other door. Because from that moment on, Rihanna became part of Roc Nation's world. And for years, everything looks perfect. Hit after hit. Global domination. But behind the scenes, rumors. Always rumors. Of control. Of influence. Of decisions being made that didn't always benefit her the way they should have. And then 2016 happens. The year everything subtly shifts. Her album Anti story leaks early, not just anywhere, but on Tidal, a platform tied directly to the same circle. That leak forces her hand, cuts her promo short, damages her rollout, and while she still performs well, the gap between her numbers and Bianca's is massive. Bianca dominates. Rihanna falls short of expectations, and in an industry where perception is everything, that matters. But what matters even more is how Rihanna reacts after that. Because she doesn't fight publicly, she doesn't rant, she doesn't expose, she disappears. Steps back from music, focuses on business, stay quiet. And silence like that, it doesn't feel random. It feels intentional. It feels like someone who knows speaking out might cost more than staying quiet. And then there's the tension. Bianca and Rihanna in the same room, avoiding each other like there's something unsaid hanging in the air. Carefully choreographed appearances. No interaction. No warmth. Just distance. And when Bianca drops Bow Down, the energy shifts again. A song that feels aggressive, territorial, almost like a warning shot. Rihanna responds the only way she does, subtly but sharply. A tweet, a caption, a message that doesn't name names but doesn't need to. Because in this world, indirect is often louder than direct. And suddenly, it's not just about music anymore. It's about positioning, power, control over who sits where in the hierarchy. But the deeper you go, the darker the whispers become. Allegations that Jay-Z didn't just discover Rihanna, but controlled the narrative around her rise. Stories about contracts, about pressure, about situations that were never meant to be public. None of it confirmed, all of it circulating. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because rumors, when repeated long enough, start to feel like truth. And truth in this industry is often buried under layers of influence. Now bring it back to the present. Rihanna's house gets shot at. Not once, 10 times. That's not random. That's not petty. That's extreme. The kind of extreme that sends a message. And what do people notice immediately? She doesn't just move houses. She leaves the area, leaves quickly. And that reaction, it raises eyebrows because it suggests fear, real fear. The kind of fear that doesn't come from a random incident. The kind of fear that comes from knowing, or at least believing, that something bigger is at play. And then Tory's father steps in again, connecting dots that people were already too nervous to connect themselves. Saying this isn't a coincidence. Saying there's a pattern. Saying his son and Rihanna might be victims of the same system. And suddenly, the conversation explodes. Online, people don't hold back. They start pointing fingers, naming names, saying what others won't. That this is about power protecting itself, about anyone who challenges that power facing consequences. Harsh ones. But here's where it gets complicated, because none of this is proven. It's all alleged, every piece of it. And yet, it doesn't feel easy to dismiss, not when the patterns line up, not when the timing feels too precise, not when multiple situations carry the same undertone, because at some point, coincidence starts to feel like strategy. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. Not the accusations, not the rumors, but the possibility that there's something operating behind the scenes that most people will never fully understand. A system that decides narratives before they reach the public. A system that rewards silence and punishes resistance. A system that keeps everything looking clean on the surface while chaos unfolds underneath. So when you look at Tory Lanez sitting in a cell, his father shouting into a void that may or may not be listening, when you look at Rihanna stepping away, reappearing only when she chooses, her movements more guarded than ever, when you look at the same names appearing in every conversation, every theory, every whispered accusation, you start to wonder, is this all just noise? Or is this the sound of something being exposed, slowly, carefully, piece by piece? Because the truth about stories like this is they don't end cleanly. They don't wrap up with answers. They linger, they evolve, they wait. And sometimes the most important parts are the ones still hidden, the ones still unfolding, the ones no one has dared to say out loud yet. And if that's the case, then this story isn't over. Not even close.